So since the topic is, careers in legal journalism, I first want to know and understand what is legal journalism according to you all. What do you think it means? Anybody wants to go? You all have signed up for a webinar on careers in legal journalism. Come on. What is legal journalism? Are people shy? Please don't be shy. Journalism pertaining to legal social issues. Okay.
Legal journalism dealing with the legal books, study of
Okay.
legal book.
Okay. Study of the legal book. Okay. Anybody else? Legal journalism combines legal expertise with journalistic skills to report on legal developments and analyze legal issues. Okay. Yes, there are no wrong answers. I'll wait for 30 more seconds and then I'll dive in. Anybody else wants to give it a go? So legal journalism is not just about reporting what happens inside a courtroom. It's about translating the language of law into the voice of the people. That's a nice reply, Nana. Okay, so we'll try and break this down. First of all, you have to understand that legal journalism is like any other journalism in the sense that all journalists have a beat that they follow, right? There are crime reporters, there are health reporters, there are education reporters, there are political reporters, there are reporters that cover sports. Just like that, legal is also a beat, right? We call it beats in journalism. That means that this is the area that they cover. Now, what entails in legal journalism is like most of you have said that it's about court reporting, of course, but it's also about covering issues that have not yet reached the court but are legal in nature. I'll tell you what that means. And it also means covering issues of public interest. It means covering legal trials in court. It means covering all the processes of law. We will break this down into different pieces for you to understand better. So you have to understand that a court is a place where all the beats come together. So you have a politician coming to court, you have an educational trust coming to court, you will have citizens coming to court saying that please don't cut trees in RA. You will have Indrani Mukherjee coming to court and saying that don't let the trial go on in Sheena Bora murder case. You will have Salman Khan coming to case, filing for his bail plea in hit and run. Each and every beat comes to court. So it's like a melting pot, right? So it's important for you as a legal journalist to keep an eye on what is happening around. You have to be able to preempt what's going to happen. So the moment you know that, okay, an accident has taken place, he's an actor or it's a high profile case, he is now going to move court to file for anticipatory bail. So you have to keep an eye on that. Those are the cases that are not listed in court, right? They are not listed on your website because they are going to be filed for the first time. They're going to be mentioned for the first time. So you need to keep an eye on that. When there is a political dispute, you have to preempt that one of the Shiv Senas are going to move court or one of the MLCs are going to move court, right? These are the things you need to know beforehand in order to be able to cover them better. That's one. Two is the idea and purpose of legal journalism is to translate what happens in court to the people. It is to make easy not only the language, the legal language, which is complex, which is something that not everybody understands. It's not comprehensible, right? It's not something that somebody who doesn't have any basic knowledge will be able to easily understand, especially the legal jargons of whether it's quid pro quo, whether it is modus operandi, whether it is suo moto, those things have to be explained. So the idea is to simplify these. The idea is to explain to common readers what does it mean when a court decides to take suo motu cognizance of a tribal woman's rape case. What does it mean when the court reserves an order, right? Now we know as lawyers, and as I'm assuming all of you are either lawyers or in your final year. So you know that when an order or judgment is reserved, it can be pronounced within a month, or it can go up to even 3 months in some cases, right? So to be able to explain those things, right? When we say that a matter has been adjourned, sometimes there is no date of adjournment. Sometimes it doesn't mention that it has been adjourned for 3 weeks or 3 months. What does that mean and why? If a judge has been transferred, sometimes we don't know the reason of the transfer. Sometimes it may be a political transfer. Sometimes we know why it has been transferred. So to be able to bring those nuances to the public, for the public to better understand processes and proceedings in court. Now, can you guys give me an example of a case that you followed and you just couldn't understand what was happening? It can be you followed on any of the legal websites, through newspapers. Nowadays, there's live tweeting. So on X, formerly known as Twitter, if is there any case that you just couldn't understand and you're like, what is happening? Feel free. If you can't think of a case that you couldn't follow, can you think of a case that you could easily follow, that you could understand that okay, now this is happening, and now this is the next step, and this is what is expected thereafter? I wanted to ask if anybody remembers a case that they could fully truly follow, and if they did, which one? Somebody has written HDFC and Lilavati Trust, Arushi murder case. Okay, what is this? Are these cases you could follow, or are these cases you couldn't follow? I'm asking because it will be easy for us to fully truly understand the nuances of a legal journalist, because we know the skills that are required is like for any other beat. As a journalist, you have to be accurate, you have to be neutral, you have to be able to translate whatever is happening to the public at large in an easy way, in a way you could follow. Yeah, Nana has written Arushi case you could completely follow. Will you be able to tell us that what is it that you really appreciated in the reporting of the case? Because one of the crucial aspects is to cover both sides, right? You have to cover the petitioner and the respondent. You have to ensure that you get, for example, affidavits filed from both the parties, or written submissions filed from both the parties, or a rejoinder filed from both the parties. You have to balance it out. It has to always be neutral, right? If you are covering a trial, you have to ensure that you are in court, you are on your own, listening to the questions asked and the replies that a witness is giving, for example, or an accused is giving. Sometimes what happens is, I'll tell you what, if a matter is being heard, let's take an example of a public interest litigation. And I remember at that time, potholes was really big because, this is a couple of years back when somebody passed away. Somebody fell actually in one of the potholes and died. So, it became a big thing. And at that time, Justice Kanade, VM Kanade was sitting in High Court, and he was furious about it, right? He was like, the BMC is such a wealthy municipal corporation. They have so much money. Despite that, year after year, there's water logging, and people are suffering, and day-to-day life gets disrupted. And what happened recently is terrible, and it's tragic that somebody died. And he just went on and on and on and on about how unfortunate it is that in India's financial capital, this is the situation, this is the condition of the roads. Every time there is monsoon, it's a cyclical issue, right? Every time there is monsoon, you will see that the news of potholes and waterlogging keeps coming up. Now, what do you do as a legal reporter? When a judge is going on and on and on and on and on about the case, it's very important for you to understand what is the news peg. That's what we call it, PEG. What do we mean by news spec? We mean the news hook. We mean what would be the headline? What is it that I will want my intro to read? Now, as a legal journalist, you have to be mindful of the fact that whatever he or she says, whatever the judge says or asks, has a relevance. When I say relevance, I mean has a relevance to the public, right? A judge may decide to suddenly start talking to the prosecutor about something. It's not your duty to report that. It is your duty to report only what is relevant and important to the public. That has to be kept in mind, right? So, other than, like I said, the skills of accuracy and neutrality and balanced views, it's also important to see what exactly is of news value. Now, I asked you guys if there are any cases you couldn't follow. I got HDFC, Lilavati could follow, Arushi could follow. Can you tell me some matter in court? Let's say a murder trial or any case, an IP case or a bail application that you just couldn't understand. Can you think of anything? Or because you all are lawyers, all of you. As a law student, what I appreciate the most is the Arushi Talwar case, is how it taught us the importance of fair investigation and justice through evidence, not assumptions. The case showed that even if people are suspected, they cannot be punished unless there is strong and clear proof. At first, the parents were found guilty based on doubts and circumstances, but later the evidence, so they were set free. But later the High Court said that there was not enough proper evidence, so they were set free. This shows how important it is to follow the rule. Innocent until proven guilty. I also learned poor investigation and media trials can harm justice. Absolutely, Nana. Thank you for sharing that. This brings us to my next topic of media trial. Now, what is media trial? Media trial is declaring that Riya Chakravarti has killed Sushant Singh. As simple as that. Edrich says presently there are two schools of thought. A lot of contemporary journals are reluctant to probe, hesitant to express opinion. Some of my colleagues have ludicrous approach. We can only report orders and judgments of the court. Some say we can't report if no FIR is lodged. I don't agree with most on most issues. So I'll tell you what. When I'm talking about the media trial, what do I mean? I mean that we need to focus on what is it that the police is saying. As a legal journalist, it's also your duty to focus on. There is a crime reporter covering the side of the police. There is a crime reporter getting the copy of the FIR, getting the copy of the charge sheet, filing stories on that. But you have to keep an eye on what the police is saying, because those things will then reach the court, and the moment they reach the court, you take over. Right? Everything that the police does, the moment it reaches the court, it is the job of the legal journalist to step in. Therefore, it is very important to keep an eye on the investigation, the quality of investigation. As a legal reporter, I have done stories on shortage of CBI officers. I have done stories on the quality of training cyber police officials are getting. I have done stories on, of course, the shortage of judges, poor court infrastructure. So the scope goes beyond just court reporting and importance of a specific law in the country. It has to do with the entire ecosystem, right? When we talk about legal journalism, it is also important to look into aspects of, like I said, court infra, or how many public prosecutors are there. Do we have enough? What is the level? What is the level of their understanding? What is the strength that is required in a high profile case that the prosecutors get as opposed to the defense? I have a couple of questions. Let me take some. Journalism many times involves exposing a wrongdoer, like a whistleblower conveying something of importance. What do you think are the legalities of legal implications on a journalist who uncovers this? There is protection for whistleblowers, but for journalists, how do you handle political pressure in journalism? So, there's nothing that protects journalists. Journalists are like any other citizens of the country. Every time we expose somebody or we are the whistleblowers, there is no special protection given to us. But of course, what is kept in mind is that what we are doing is part of our job, it's part of our profession, part of my duty, right? Under the Indian Constitution, my right to practice the choice of my profession. So that is definitely taken into consideration that it is my fundamental right to uncover something. There is no law to protect us. In fact, I must tell you about a senior journalist called Day, Jyotirmay Day. There is a show on him, I think it's called Scoop on Netflix. And Jyotirmay Day was in midday. He was shot on 11th June 2011 in Powai by gang members of Chota Raj. Now, at that time, he was covering about the underworld from the 90s. Okay, so Chota Rajan, Dawood, all the other gangsters. And there was the Chota Rajan and his people thought that he is constantly writing against them. And therefore, they warned him that do not write about us. Okay, if you do that, we will kill you. There were direct threats, not even an attempt, not a message on X, Twitter, Facebook saying that, oh, we'll kill you. No, they were sending direct messages of you have to stop reporting on us, otherwise there is a threat to your life. He obviously didn't pay attention because he was like, I'm doing my job. And he was shot dead. Now, when this happened, I covered the entire trial. Kudos to the judge. The entire trial was concluded in 6 months. Okay, which is fabulous, right? Which is rare. Murder trials take a lot of time. Luckily, in this case, by the time the trial began, we had already extradited Chota Rajan back to India, so he was in Tihar. And the case was, if I'm not mistaken, by the CBI, and it was really expedited. And the Chota Rajan and his members were convicted of murdering J. I can tell you one thing that whatever happened around his death was something as far as legal processes are concerned. Whatever followed was what would follow if anything happens to either of us. But what made a difference is that he was a journalist. How did it make a difference? There was a lot of protest in and around Bombay because at that time he was the first journalist in Bombay. Now I'm sure there are many, many journalists. We can have another topic, another discussion on how many journalists have been losing their lives in the line of duty. I teach this very often to my students of journalism in different colleges that what are the kind of stories that they were covering when they lost their lives, but they still do what they do because it's their duty. So in JD's case, there was a lot of pressure from the public at large also that, we need speedy justice. And that's what was delivered. And I have two, three more comments. Yes, many journalists are shot for reporting what's true. That's true. Sanika says, as a law student aspiring to enter the field of legal journalism, how can I start building a career? Additionally, what types of internships or practical experiences would be most helpful? Would you recommend interning with media houses, law firms? So, to answer your question, Sanika, uh, you can start building a career in legal journalism. Yes, interning with newspapers and websites is is the first step to get into it. What kind of internships, practical experiences? So the easiest way is start interning. Like I've had many interns when I was with the Hindu. We used to take a lot of law students who, wanted to see what it is like to be a legal journalist. So they interned with me for a couple of months, some of them for 1 month, some of them for more than 2, 3 months. So I would take them to court. I first started, if you need to enter the profession, you have to first learn how to navigate the website of the court. Now, if we are all, I'm assuming we are all in Bombay. You have to know how to read the Bombay High Court's website, how to go through the Sessions Court's website. You should be able to read the board. You should be able to see what cases are listed, who are the lawyers. Try and read old orders. Start getting a hang of reading court orders, especially the lengthy ones, the ones that go beyond 100 pages. How do you read those orders and judgments? Now, one of the challenges of a legal journalist is you have a 500-page order and you have to write a 500-word story on it. How do you do that? Right? You have to obviously focus on the most newsy points. When I say newsy, you have to keep in mind the golden rule of what is important for the public at large. What is that the public wants to know, right? So you have to obviously give a very brief introduction of what the case is, what is it that was before the court, and what is it that the court ruled. If a reasoning has been given, please mention the reasoning. What is it that the court has ruled and why, right? So once you start interning with legal journalists, once you start interning with uh, publications or websites, nowadays a lot of people take interns. Earlier, they were quite hesitant. So start interning, get a hang of what is it that their day is like. Now, I used to be in court from 11 to 5, the court hours, right? And then sometimes if an important matter is listed, it doesn't reach because the judge is busy listening to something else. So then you try and go to different other courts. You see what is happening somewhere else. You go to the bar room. You go meet the prosecutor. Try and build your relationship. Go meet the chief PP and be like, "Hi, I'm so and so. I've just joined the profession and I would like to exchange your number." So let them know that you are new and you are interested. Be seen every day in court. Whenever you are seen by even by the court staff, they will take you seriously. They will know that okay, this person is here to really cover the news. And if there is an important document that has been filed that the lawyers are not helping you give, sometimes the court staff can help you with it. But for that, you have to be seen every day. They need to know that you are sincere, you're genuine, and you're there to really, cover a good story, right? So it's important to start going to courts and, of course, start interning with. I hope I've answered your question. Let me see if I have any other questions. How do you handle political pressure? What if someone gave you money and asked you to spread false negative news? That's obviously those are personal calls, which I have always avoided. And yeah, please feel free to keep questioning, putting questions in the chat box. I hope I've not missed out on anyone. So what the other thing that I want to talk about is that it is important to keep in mind that you have a duty towards the public as well as the entire judiciary. Now, as we know, judiciary is one of the important pillars of democracy. When we say judiciary, it's very important to do stories like what do judges do during court vacation, right? Somebody has asked me how much do legal journalists get paid? It's what any other journalist is paid. It's no different. Can you suggest any short-term or certificate courses that can help law improve their legal writing and reporting skills? So the easiest way to improve your writing skills, legal writing skills, is to read. You have to read newspapers, you have to read legal stories, you have to read legal columns. Pick up the Hindu, read the legal stories filed in the Hindu or Express or whatever else that you follow. If you don't want to read the newspaper, at least read their website. Nowadays, their apps cover all stories, right? So start reading. And when you read, don't read it like uh, a commoner. Read it with the idea to see how this is written. What are the things that are mentioned? What is the language? Now, one of the key principles of journalism is, I'll tell you very quickly, is 5 W's and 1 H. What is that? The 5 W's are who, where, what, when, why. and how. So your first paragraph has to have this solid introduction of who said what. So in your case, because you're a legal reporter, your story will begin: the Bombay High Court said X. The Bombay High Court ruled that there will be a ban on plastics. The Bombay High Court protected X and said he will not be arrested. Whatever it is that you are trying to say, it has to be said in the first paragraph itself. Bombay High Court said what, right? And the second paragraph has to talk about who said it. So the judges said it. In which matter did they say it? Was it a PI? Was it another application? Was it a petition? Was it a habeas corpus? Depends on what the case was. I have two, three questions. Can you suggest? Yeah, the courses or certifications, I would say, stick to just reading and writing. Go to court and start observing how the proceedings are taking place, and then just stick to how is it that you want to communicate this to people. How do you get an internship in legal journalism? Do we need to apply or walk in? So nowadays, you can easily get their contacts through Twitter, LinkedIn. You can just I mean, when I had started out, I had to personally go to the offices. You don't need to do that now. You can just contact them virtually and ask them for an internship, write an email. But I want to understand from you guys, whoever is asking me about legal journalism, what is it that is attracting you towards it? Why do you want to get into it? Why do you want to get into legal journalism? What would you suggest for a fresher to navigate into legal journalism as a stable source of earning? Is it possible to practice as a lawyer simultaneously while pursuing legal journalism? So I'll tell you what. I'm sure you already know this. When you are a lawyer, you cannot be anything else, right? If you are a practicing lawyer, if you've taken a sanad, you cannot practice another profession. Second point, when I was a legal journalist, I was studying law. While I was studying, I was working with Free Press Journal. And then I moved the ladder. I went to Hindustan Times and then the Hindu. So you can't be a lawyer and a journalist. You can be a journalist and a lawyer, which means you can be a journalist and have your LLB. I didn't take the sanad because I was a practicing journalist. Got it? The other thing that you need to keep in mind is that in the Supreme Court, if you want to be able to cover the proceedings in the court, you have to either be a law graduate. If not, you have to have 5 years of experience in covering courts. Without that, you do not understand, in depth understand law and journalism. And there's no such rule in any other courts to have an LLB before covering the courts in any other city or state, high court or lower courts. But in the Supreme Court, you have to either have a law degree or you have to have 5 years of experience in covering courts. Yeah, when I asked why are you interested in legal journalism, Gaurav has said in depth understand law and journalism. Okay. And whoever is asking me about internships and courses, what is attracting you towards legal journalism? What is legal journalism? What does it entail? It goes beyond just court reporting. I have a confusion. Somebody has a confusion. Many practicing advocates and judges write. Yeah, so they can write columns, they can write their opinions, and not many, very few write for newspapers and websites. So you can write your opinion on something. You can't be a legal journalist. A legal journalist is somebody who does reporting. You are a legal journalist full time. It is a full time profession. If you are writing some pieces sporadically here and there, that doesn't make you a legal journalist. You are able to write those pieces because you have a certain experience. And those are op-eds. Those are opinion pieces. Those are your own thoughts on a certain issue or topic. That doesn't make you a legal journalist. A legal journalist is somebody who reports about this is what the court said, this is what the lawyer said, this is what the matter was, this is what happened, this is where the trial is, this is where the application is, this is where this guy has been granted bail or rejected bail. Yeah. So one of the things that the other aspects of judiciary, one we've covered is the investigation. That means the entire police, the entire machinery. Another crucial aspect is also facilities they should get, the facilities they don't get, parole, furlough. But other than that, even issues of important inmates in jail, who are inside, why are they inside. If you want to talk about, if you can pick up cases like the Bhima Koregaon case, right? It's going on since 2018, but so many of them are still in jail. Why are they in jail? You can get into the life of the superintendent of a jail. You can do such stories. This also is part of a profile of a legal journalist to do these stories. The question is, what kind of work can we expect from an internship? An internship is just like any other internship. You will be taken. I used to take my interns to court with me. So, in an ideal scenario, you will be taken to court by the legal journalist, and you will be shown around that, okay, this is where the chief sits, this is where other judges sit. You will be shown how to read a board to see which important cases are listed. And then when you start going to court, you need to follow the proceedings of what exactly is happening. Now, as a legal intern, you will be expected to file a copy, to write a story. Obviously, that won't be printed. It is just for you to understand how to write a copy, right? I used to always rewrite those stories and show them that, okay, this is not how you write, this is how you write, this is how it needs to start, this is how it needs to end. It's very challenging to write legal copies in a short format. So sometimes you have to write them in 200 words, 500 words, 300 words. Sometimes you have to file a short copy online. What are the topics you'll cover? How will you cover? What is the things you'll keep in mind? The language. So this is what you will learn in the internship. You know that what has to be written and how it has to be written. Yeah, I have one more question. Yeah. So I hope I've answered I have replied to the confusion of Shruti, many practicing judges. So see what happens is, like I said, a legal journalist is like any other journalist. We have a separate beat, that is the court beat. Now, I would suggest only those who really love the law and are really, really interested in going to court every day should become legal journalists, because you have to go to the court every day. Sometimes you may not need to go there for the entire day, and sometimes you may not need to go for sometimes you may need to go for just one case and you're out because nothing else is listed. But you have to get into the habit of going to the court. You have to like to do that. You have to want to do that. Otherwise, it will become very boring for you. And the other things is you have to be in the habit of reading the papers, which I'm sure you guys already are, right? Reading the petition, reading the applications, reading submissions, because that's where the stories lie. How exactly do you quote the judge? So, like I said, if the judge, I was talking about VM Kanade and how he was expressing his worry on the conditions of roads in Mumbai. The way to quote a judge is when he or she is pointedly asking the lawyer a specific question pertaining to the case. So, for example, if we are hearing a PIL on a drought in Bombay, in Maharashtra, and the court has asked the public prosecutor how many liters of water is still left and what are the arrangements you have made for the next 2 months. File an affidavit in 3 weeks and let me know. This is how you quote the judge, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be verbatim, because sometimes you may either get it wrong sometimes, or sometimes what is said is not worthy of being quoted. In a case like this, you can just simply state that say that the Bombay High Court has asked the Maharashtra government what is the status of water left in the state because it is reeling through a drought. If, let's say, the judge has said this is despicable, this is unacceptable, how can the financial city of the country face the water crisis that it is. This is just not acceptable, and the state has to take complete responsibility for it. If a court says something like this, you have to write it in as many words. You have to be exact in quoting. You have to obviously stand very close to the judge, because even though they have mics, sometimes they don't use it. Sometimes it's not effective. So you have to stand very close to the judge and write whatever he or she is saying, so they don't get it wrong. The idea is to convey that the judge expressed concern, that the judge was angry, that the judge questioned, that the judge rapped the court and said, this is just unacceptable. So only when you are present in court can you know the exact words and diction, right? When I say diction, I mean how were those words delivered? Can you use words like the Bombay High Court came down heavily on the state government? Did the court really? You can assess that only when you are yourself in court and you have heard the judge speak to the prosecutor. Only then can you truly know what is the tone and diction of the court. I hope I've answered that question. Do advocates provide the details of the case to journalists because they also need to maintain privacy, so there are chances they may break? No, advocates are very open. In fact, they are very happy to share details of their cases because their names will be mentioned in the stories, unless it is a case that they don't need publicity on. Let's say it's a bitter divorce between two actors, for example. Then they don't really want to share what he said, what she said, right? Because it's not serving the purpose. It's just washing your linen in public. But let's say if it is a merger, if it is an acquisition, if it is an IP case, then they'll be very happy to share details about, oh, this is what we acquired and this is how much we paid for the M&A or JV. So mostly it depends. But what I have experienced is lawyers are very happy to share details, and they're very friendly on WhatsApp also. They'll send applications, they'll send petitions, they'll send affidavits. Okay, now I have one more. I have two questions. Something I said appears interesting to Gaurav. Thanks for sharing information. I have been in and out of journalism, says Edrich, including court reporting, legal articles. Now I seek reforms as the rot has set in. What reforms would you suggest? What kind of reforms are you talking about, Edrich? Do you want to unmute and maybe share?
The contemporary journalists who are covering courts, uh, if I may say, are not very conversant with law. As a result, they hesitate to write what factually transpired, or or either implement their own ideas or probe or otherwise
Hmm.
suggest anything. They go by run of the mill sort of, whatever is being reported mechanically.
Hmm.
So can we change the situation?
Uh, so see, there is nothing that can be done at a macro level. Like I said, to cover proceedings in the Supreme Court, you have to be a lawyer, you have to have your LLB, or you have to have 5 years of experience. That's one of the reasons why I studied law while covering courts, is because I thought it's important for me to have the knowledge in order to fully grasp what is happening, and so that I don't give half-baked information, so that I don't dumb it down, so that I don't oversimplify something. So I'm afraid these are calls that publications, news channels, websites take as to who they want to hire and what is the quality of reporting they want to do. So I don't think there is anything that we can do pan India or at a macro level. Gaurav, you have asked me, do you expect journalist protection bill? Do you expect journalist protection bill? Matlab, do you do I expect it to become a law? Is that what you're saying? I actually
Probably,
don't.
ma'am, should we have a journalist protection bill? What is your opinion on that?
Oh, okay. What is my should we have?
Protection. Acha.
So, I don't think that's going to change anything. First of all, India is a country that has many laws, right? We not only have many laws, we are also a litigating population, right? There is this old saying of "I'll see you in court, मैं court में देख लूंगा." What is that? That is us constantly taking our disputes to court. Now, as far as the journalist protection bill is concerned, I don't think it will serve the purpose. I don't think there is anything that will change, because in any case, when a journalist dies in the line of duty, it is very difficult to prove the motive. It is very difficult for somebody to prove that I was killed because I was constantly writing about mining, for example, or if I was because I was constantly writing about A, B, or C. It is very difficult. But let's say in cases like J-Day, because he was a crime reporter and all he did was this for the last, let's say, 3 years, all he wrote about was Chota Rajan. It was easy to write and know the motive because he was also threatened, right? Don't forget that. The threats that he received and his family members received made it easy for the chain of investigation to be completed. But in today's case, there are so many journalists who are intimidated on daily basis. There are so many journalists who are threatened to not say anything against a political establishment or a political party or even the billionaires. So I don't think a journalist protection bill is going to change it.
Ma'am, what are the alternative
Yeah.
sources of income for a journalist in the initial years of their career?
Alternative sources, journalism should be enough. If it's not, it depends on what you're interested in. I mean, an alternate can be anything. An alternate can be you working as a waiter somewhere, or you helping somebody with computer classes. But like I said, the income of a journalist should be sufficient.
One more question from Gaurav.
These are for court reporters, it's obviously 11 to 5. You have to be in court during that time, and after that, you have to file your copies. So it's more or less 8 to 10 hours, give or take a heavy day, a heavy news day. If it's a heavy news day, it can go up to 12 to 14 hours also. But on an average, 8 to 10 hours, I would say. Yeah. Yes, Malvika.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much for such an
Thank you.
enlightening session. It was a
Thank you.
great learning experience, and we got so
Thank
much
you.
clarity on today's topic. Thank you so much,
Thank you
ma'am.
so much. Thank you for having me. Thanks, all of you. Thank you, Malvika. Thank you, Asim. And all the best to you all.
Thank you, ma'am, for your time and efforts. Thank you.